So we're handing you over now to Lesley, who's going to sort of talk about tea charm reading, which is very different and unusual. Lesley, over to you, Mrs. Tea Charm.
Thank you. Hi, it's time to go into the world of divination using tea charms. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of tea leaf reading. And, you know, when you think back, you would sit with your cuppa, have a bit of conversation, and as you got to the bottom of your tea, you might notice that there are some interesting little patterns forming with the tea leaves. And just like we see clouds in the sky and we see patterns there that we're familiar with, the same thing happens with tea leaf reading. In fact, tea leaf reading is known as tasseography. Don't try and say that quickly. I know I can't. And it actually seems to have had its origins in Asia and ancient Greece. Now, in the Middle East, it was different. They did coffee readings, and I actually have a friend who does coffee readings. Quite amazing. In the more modern times, tea leaf reading began around the 17th century, and that's when tea was first introduced from the East, from China through the trade routes by the Dutch moving into Europe and selling tea. Now, initially, when something new comes onto the scene, only the rich and famous can have it. So they would sip on their tea in their salons and have a good chat about life. But tea became so popular that over time it became more readily available and more people had access to it. And again, when people sat with a cup of tea, they were more inclined to talk about what was going on in their life. A lot of ladies still do this today. We all sit down with our cuppa and we chat about, you know, what's happening in our life, what's not working, what is. And once again, you know, you get down to the dregs and you see the tea leaves and you might notice some patterns. Well, in the 1800s, tea leaf reading became very popular in the US. And that also moved on into after World War I, when they started opening up tea salons and actually running little tea reading parties. And I should step back a little bit of time in time as well, back to Europe, because that's when the wonderful Romany people took up tea leaf reading after many, many years, I don't know how long, of reading anything that was melted, like they would do readings on melted wax and lead. I think tea leaves are a little bit more tasty, I would say. But now, not everyone likes to drink tea. I can't believe it myself because I'm Scottish and I love a good cup of tea, but some people don't. And that actually takes me back. It just reminds me of my very first tea leaf reading I ever did. I was only 16 and my dancing teacher said to me, "All you Scots are fey," meaning psychic, "go on, I've just finished a cup of tea, read my tea leaves." And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I thought, okay, my teacher wants me to do this, I'll give it a go, and did my very first tea leaf reading when I was 16. It was kind of a precursor to the metaphysical journey that I've gone on ever since. But as I said, not everybody likes drinking tea, so there is a modern day version. It's called tea charms. Don't worry, you're going to get to see them in a moment. So I'll pop my cup down. And what I'm going to do is I am going to switch my camera so that you can see my reading table. And we're actually going to go through some charms and look at some of my reading mats. And then I'm going to do a little demonstration for you. So let me just share my screen first. Don't you love all this technology? It just makes life so much easier. Here we go. Share that screen. And we'll see if we can get that to come up. And hit the share button, and there we go. So I hope everyone can see the screen. If somebody can just give me a little yes so I know. That would be. Thank you. So I'm going to move over here. You might see my arm in the little screen there a bit, but here we have our tea charms. Now, this particular system of tea charms, I have to pay homage to my teacher, a lovely lady in Melbourne, Australia called Tea with Karen. And she actually created this particular system of reading with the tea charms. And she also created tea reading cards. So basically what these cards and symbols represent are the common patterns and symbols that we see in our tea leaves once we've drunk our cup of tea and all the liquid has gone. So you can see we've got cherries there. This represents the lady. And we have the same thing with the tea charms. We also have a reading mat. Well, lots of reading mats, actually. This is my favorite one. It's so huge. I use this to do tarot readings as well. But this reading mat has different areas of life that you can read from if you're going to do a general reading. And then we have other mats. We have this one. This is representative of looking down into a teacup. So wherever the charms fall, where they fall in the teacup, we can read them. This being the present. And as we go round the clock, we can say 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. We can do it in days, weeks, and hours. I can also do astrological, using the astrology signs and the houses with this mat. So what we do is we sprinkle charms and I do the reading based on that. Of course, you can ask specific questions as well. I love specific questions when it comes to readings. But a little bit more about the charms. Because they're so tiny and hard to see, I've created this little photograph to show you. So for example, let's look at the butterfly. Now we know that butterflies transform from dark cocoons as little slugs, and they come out of the cocoon and into the light. So butterfly represents transformation and emergence. It also means lightening up because they are so light and delicate and they float in the air. Now I'm going to come over to the handcuffs. Most of my clients have a bit of a giggle about the handcuffs, and so do I. And it's interesting and quite ironic that these handcuffs actually have the word freedom on them. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. But when we think of handcuffs, we think of people who restrict us. You know, whether they imprison us physically, mentally, emotionally. You could think of, no, you're not allowed to go out with that boy tonight, a mother talking to her daughter. Or it could be a restricted environment, but it could be a restriction that you place on yourself. Sometimes our own self-doubts make us go, oh, I can't do that. That's a form of imprisonment. Then we're going to move across to the chair. Now, there are different ways of interpreting all of the charms, but one way we can look at the chair is that here's someone who's sitting pretty at the moment. Or if we look at it in another sense, it could be someone who's maybe sitting a little too pretty and it's time to get out of their comfort zone and get up and get going. Over here we have the mushroom. Mushrooms grow in the dark, they thrive in the dark. And so mushroom represents things that are hidden, things that are not obvious to the eye. And some mushrooms are actually poisonous. So in some instances when reading the mushroom, we can say that something is a little bit toxic, something that's not on the surface, something that's not known might be a little bit toxic. The ring's a pretty obvious one for a lot of people. They say, oh yes, it's about engagement and getting married. And yes, most definitely it can be, but it can also be about any form of commitment. So it could be a commitment to a new job, to a hobby, to a lifestyle, to a friendship. And then we're going to come down to the broom next. The broom is about sweeping out that which is no longer needed, clearing out. So it could literally translate as doing a declutter of your house. It could mean checking where you're at emotionally and letting go of emotions that no longer serve you. And let's move over to the baby carriage. The baby carriage, yes, represents a baby, and yes, it could literally mean that a new baby is coming into the family, but it's also about new beginnings. Because, you know, a baby's brand new and it has to grow and develop. And so when a pram comes up or a baby comes up, for example, in a career reading, am I going to say to you, oh, look at that, you've got this great career, but you're going to have a baby? No. What I would be saying is that there's something new within your career path that is coming into play for you and to be aware of. And let's pop down to the anchor. The anchor holds the ship still. It stops it from floating away in the ocean. So anchor can be about someone who's already grounded and anchored, or someone who needs to be. So that's just a little bit of an idea. So what we're going to do is move that out of the way, and I'm going to bring my charms back. And what we're going to do is a little sample reading today. And I'm going to look at a reading which is going to give us a little bit of energy for the week to come. So how do I do it? A couple of ways. I like to use a little bit of theatre, so I've got my special teaspoon that says tea makes everything better. And what I usually do with a client is I ask them to stir while they are thinking about their questions. So I'm going to think about the energy for the coming week. And then I'm going to take a spoonful of my charms. I don't need a lot, and I'm just going to sprinkle them. You can also, if you don't want to use a spoon, take a little pinch and drop a little pinch. Or if there's an area of life that you're interested in, you can just choose one charm and place it in that area of life. So here we have got our charms laid out. So let's have a look. So when it comes to spirituality, which is this area of life here, and personal growth, it's saying that we've got the mask. And the mask is saying it is time to open up about your own spirituality, to not keep it quite so hidden, not to hide that spiritual part of yourself this week. And don't worry, because there are going to be people there to support you, because we've got the dog. The dog represents friendship, support, companionship, unconditional love. So if you've been a little bit scared about being more open in the coming week about your spirituality, then be brave. It'll be fine. Moving on to romance and partnerships, we've got the tent. This is a circus tent. And oh boy, do I like this one in the area of romance and partnerships. This one's saying go on a little romantic retreat. Have a little bit of time out. Let's go down to money matters. Now we've got the camel here. Camels, they're fantastic because they can support themselves for long periods of time without food or water, but they always get across to the other side of the desert. So this is saying to me that when it comes to money matters this week, it's going to seem like it's a bit of hard yakka, a bit of a struggle, but keep going, keep your eye on the budget, keep moving forward, and you will come out the other side. By the end of the week, finances will look a bit better. Where else can we go? Let's come down here, because when a charm lands between two areas of life, it means both areas of life are affected. Now down here, we've got the fox. And the fox is saying to me, foxes are about being street smart. Foxes are cunning, but being cunning isn't always necessarily a negative thing. So what the fox is saying to me is that this coming week, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more street smart about how you balance what's going on with your career and business and work life and what's going on with your family. You're going to have to think smart about how to handle it. And in the workplace, we've got the pipe, and that means that there's going to be an older person in the workplace that is there to support you, that can be a bit of a mentor for you. At home, we've got the teacup and the saucer here. And what that's saying is that it is time to get a little bit of time to socialise with your family. Spend a little bit more time with them than perhaps you have been in the coming week. And particularly if the COVID-19 restrictions are easing off a little for you in being able to visit family, this coming week is a fabulous time to do it. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Tea charms can be used on their own, or I can use them with tarot cards. So if I was doing a tarot card reading, say for family, I've got the Page of Pentacles here. And so what that's saying to me is maybe it's time for me to sit down with a cuppa and have a chat with maybe my son, my daughter, a younger family member in my life who needs maybe a little bit of guidance. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea. So thank you so much for taking the time today to find out about the art of tea charms reading. Thank you so much.
It's just so lovely, Lesley. Honestly, I just think that's so quirky, so different. Just really, honestly, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It was fabulous.